is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 101, Episode 3, The Unquiet Dead. In this episode, there are some gas beings, no fart jokes please, that turn out to be much more lethal than at first thought. Still no fart jokes, please. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Trying not to laugh. Farts.
Oh, it's funny because farts can seem like they're not going to be that bad and then clear a room.
Yep. And they're always funny.
I wonder if Rashawn's listening to this because she hates the word fart so much that she calls it the F word, which I find amazing.
Does she say toot?
Nope. She doesn't. That's what she said, the F word. And any, even euphemism for it, I think she might hate even more, in a way. But yeah, she is very firm.
Oh, wow.
So welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I'm Jaime.
And yeah, this episode was pretty wild. So this is the first one that I had not yet seen. Mm-hmm. And I'm really still not used to the fact that we could just be out here doing anything because time travel. So, all right.
Now, I know you like a Christmas Story, right?
I don't care about A Christmas Story.
Oh. I thought you were the one who loved watching it every Christmas. No?
No. I love Home Alone.
Well, yes, I know that.
A Christmas Carol. Are you talking about Christmas Carol?
That's what I mean. A Christmas Carol. Jesus Christ. Sorry.
Christmas Story is the other one that
I've never
most
seen A
people
Christmas
like.
Story. I was meant the Christmas Carol. I meant the Dickens story.
Okay. I was like, why is she bringing what? Okay. Got you. Yes. Christmas Carol is the shit. It's awesome to read. It's awesome to watch if you own. I am a firm George C. Scott version fan because it's the truest to the books. Or the book. Mm-hmm. And, it's excellent.
And are you a fan of Dickens in general?
No, because Dickens is real heavy-handed.
Yeah, I can't stand his books.
Yeah, usually, this is the one exception, and I think it's because of when it's set that it feels like, be heavy-handed, it's Christmas. Which I don't know why that makes it okay.
Yeah.
But it's fine. And otherwise, I get so irritated where he's like, this man is named Rich McEvil and here's his daughter Prunella Selfish, and you're like, guy, dude, just dial it back a tiny bit. But yeah, I'm not really that familiar with a lot of his work though, to be honest, because the few things that I've read I wasn't big enough a fan of to bother exploring anymore. And Christmas Carol, I got into as a kid because my mom always put it on at Christmas time. But the other things that I have read were required reading for college classes.
Right.
And were terrible.
Yeah, I think with A Christmas Carol too, it's a good story. So watching it is different. I've seen it done as a play. I've watched different movie versions of it, and I love it. But I can't read Dickens. I can't stand how he writes.
Okay. I think that's fair.
And I honestly haven't seen, any other movie versions of his stories, so I can't say whether those stories translate well to film where you can lighten up the language a little bit and you're not so bogged down by place setting or whatever it is that he does.
I haven't either, actually, now that you say that. I'm trying to think of another Dickens movie that I've seen, and I have, Oliver Twist, I've seen, the stage play.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
That's, the musical. That doesn't count.
isn't A Bleak House one of his books? I think Gillian Anderson did like a TV miniseries of that.
I think so, because there's a joke about it.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to watch that because it had Gillian Anderson in it, but my dislike of Dickens like stopped me from checking it out.
So yeah, and like, to be honest, when this started, I'm not familiar with the dates that he wrote things. So when it started, I was like, are they going to play this? Like, this is his inspiration for writing Christmas Carol because it's a ghost story set at Christmas. Mm-hmm. And then they have it, him reciting it in the theater. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's already written. And, spoilers, it turns out that he gets all inspired, but he's going to die. So, go ahead and write your dumb, weird garbage about blue gas creatures because nobody's going to know. Go ahead and ruin your reputation.
Yeah, I guess there's some, besides like the Bleak House joke that's in there, there's a couple of little like references to his work, and there's a whole conversation about his work between him and the doctor.
Huh, okay.
So, but I don't know his work well enough to have caught any of that stuff. I just read some trivia.
Yeah, same. And also, I wanted to mention, like, this episode, because this is another thing that I don't think I really, like, considered and is sort of surprising to me, is that this episode starts off in the past without the Doctor or Rose at all. So we're seeing all of what's happening here before they even arrive, which I didn't expect it to ever go this way. I thought, we'd always be with them and see things the way that they saw it. But instead we're put in a position where we know what's going on when they get there, and they don't, and they have to catch up. Yeah. Which is interesting.
And there was a question I always had, and I can't remember if it ever gets answered, but he meant to go to a different year and a different place.
Right, yeah.
He meant to go to 1860 Naples and ended up in 1869 Cardiff. And I've always wondered if the TARDIS picks up on things that are happening where the Doctor needs to go to help people.
Yeah, because aren't they like having trouble in the TARDIS when like they're trying to pick a spot and she says it's not working, I can't hold them both down?
Yeah.
And we don't ever find out what that even meant. But I am curious, like, what does that mean? You can't hold them both down. They never really go back to that. But
it's like the TARDIS was fighting what direction they wanted to go in.
Yeah,
And taking them specifically to this time and place so that the Doctor could save these people. Or not, as it turns out.
Yes. Yeah, Doctor. Way to go, by the way. I was so irritated with him this episode. Rose is the one talking sense. And sure, is the morality, is it just like a different type? And I get what he's saying. I get what he's trying to do here. But also, holy shit, dude. You don't just do that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? But we'll get there. All right. So it starts off in a funeral home in 1860. And there's an old lady with her grieving grandson. And some like weird blue light comes over her face. And she grabs his ass and strangles him to death. And then knocks out the funeral director. I use very formal modern language for that. The, what do they call it?
In my notes, it says Undertaker.
Undertaker, that's the one. And then she like walks out the door with this weird blue gas light coming out of her face. And then we go to the opening credits. Mm-hmm. It did. Now this is going to be the bone that I pick with this episode overall, is that they have this like, oh, well, they're going to die and we just want to live and yada, yada, yada. But nobody mentions to the Doctor that they killed somebody. Like, right away. That's the first thing they did. Which I feel like is showing their hand a little bit. And if anybody had cared to mention that to him, he might have... You could say it's an accident, but they very clearly were holding him by the throat, trying to kill him. That was the whole point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I have now watched this episode more times than I've ever thought I would. And that never occurred to me.
Yeah, I kind of like, I expected it to like come up at some, like the funeral director to be like, oh, you know what? I didn't mention that, did I? But yeah. And it never does.
They are a little murdery.
They are, you know? I mean, it's, if they were just trying to get help as they purport, then they could do that in many different ways without just like breaking out in a body and going and wreaking havoc in a theater.
Yeah.
It just like their modus operandi does not match with what they claim, and nobody seems to be bothered by that. And I guess you could explain it away by being like, well, maybe they are not maybe they're not used to being in these kinds of bodies, and so they can't control what they're doing. But that feels like a real good argument to not give them bodies then. You know? Like...
Yeah. And considering later, which is jumping ahead, but when they go into bodies again, the first thing they do is, again, kill someone.
You know? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Put the evidence together, everybody. But anyway... So, this fucking Undertaker.
His name is Sneed.
It should be. That's the most Dickensy name for this fucking guy. He is such a little shit. Like, first of all, this has been going on, and he has just been sort of like hoping it'll go away and stop, which... I can't blame him for that, because I don't know what the fuck I would do in response to all this. You know, like, what? But when they're out looking for this lady later, he's with what's the name of the servant girl?
Gwyneth.
She has the site, and he wants her to use it and tells her that he will dismiss her if she doesn't, which I never like power plays like that.
Yeah.
And... then once everything goes down, he like is totally fine with kidnapping Rose, and we find out later groping her as she's passed out, which is super cool. And I hate him, and I'm glad he dies. So that's my assessment.
Yeah, he doesn't seem particularly nice, and Gwyneth seems to feel like she owes him for taking her in and giving her a job, which I guess back then was a common feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish she had gotten a little bit of Rose's moxie at the end, you know?
Yeah. Moxie. That's a good word. Although one could argue that it's moxie that she, like, tries to sacrifice herself for the good of these other creatures, even though it was foolhardy and ill-informed.
Yeah.
It was still something.
But she thought they were angels that had been talking to her since her parents died.
Right.
So.
And she is very self-sacrificing overall, so I guess it's not moxie, because she's just willing to give herself up, usually, it seems like. So, all right, I take it back. Sorry, girl.
Sorry, Gwyneth.
So this old lady gets out of here. Then we see the Doctor and Rose struggling with the TARDIS, and they arrive, and he realizes that they are in the wrong time, which she does not care about, the wrong date, which she does not care about. But then when he says that they're in Cardiff, that's when she's like, oh, what? Come on. Which I don't, like, is that a thing? Do you know? Is Cardiff supposed to be terrible?
It's just part of England still. It's in Wales, so
it's just not exotic enough?
It's not exotic. She thought she was going to Naples. She steps out. There's fucking snow on the ground. Girl, you're not in Naples.
That I think maybe that was part of my confusion. It was just like, did you really think you were in Italy right now? I guess parts of Italy probably get some snow, but...
Yeah, not Naples.
Yeah,
I mean, if I'm wrong, please let me know. I've never been there, but I'm pretty sure Naples is really far south.
I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll get the messages. I probably won't.
But yeah, I was just like, because for me, you know, being there, that wouldn't be so bad. I have always kind of wanted to go to Wales.
Isn't Wales sort of treated like the, you know, unwanted younger step sibling of the UK?
I've always thought of it as like the Jersey of the UK.
Yeah. Their accents are weird. They use a lot of extra letters that don't sound the way they look. I want to go there. I think Wales sounds amazing. Have you seen the name of that town that's like 47 letters?
Oh, yeah.
It's the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and the meteorologist who just sails right through it like it's no fucking thing.
Sometimes I watch that video just to make myself laugh. I love it so much.
So they get out and just kind of wander around, which is apparently like what they do is just sort of get out, explore, see if anything's going on. And, spoiler alert, there is something going on.
Yeah, they hear screams. Well, I guess that's where we need to go.
And it turns out that a possessed lady has wandered into the theater. Apparently you don't need tickets. I don't know how this place works.
She had a ticket.
What?
I mean, we don't see it, but they talk of when they realize where she is, it's because she was really excited to go before she died, and then she died. So it's like that memory was in her head. I was going to see Charles Dickens speak.
How did I miss that? That's amazing. That's also sort of a weird thing because, like, it implies that this lady, it's like she's partially in control of her faculties here. But we know that's not really true.
Maybe they just, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's not as well thought out as it is just clever.
Yeah.
Place setting.
But yeah, in Dickens, we see him, and this guy was in Amadeus, BT dubs.
The guy
Simon
who plays
Callow.
Dickens?
Yeah.
He's also, let me see, I have a note about it. He's written extensively about Charles Dickens, and he has played him in a television and a one-man show.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So he's kind of a Dickens expert.
Yeah, he was the guy who owned the shady common opera house that Wolfgang goes and works in when he's tired of all the snobs.
You're gonna hate me.
You go. All right, podcast over. You're gonna go watch it right the fuck now.
Yeah, Jason. Every time I'm like, I haven't seen Amadeus, and he's like, "Why not?" He gets really mad at me.
It's like top 5 movies ever.
I don't know why I've never seen it. Obviously, I would love it. I know I would love it.
You make sure though, if you see it, that you watch the uncut version because there's this whole shut up. There's this whole section that really I let slide, but didn't make a ton of sense to me. And then once I got the director's cut and I watched it incomplete, I was like, how could they have deleted the scene? Because that other thing just now, it doesn't make any sense. So it's not like extras are just fun. It's really changes the plot to me. So make sure you watch that version.
Okay.
But yeah, so here is Dickens lamenting the fact that he has grown old and has run out of ideas and is stale. Which, same. And
Not
then
true.
he goes out on the stage and starts to recite his book from memory, apparently. Which we don't see anybody acting it out because he's standing to the right on the stage. So I expected somebody at some point to come out he was narrating the opening, and then there was going to be an actor that appeared. But apparently that's all the show is going to be, is just him reciting his book.
I think maybe things like this were sort of common where I don't know a lot about Dickens, but I know that he wrote little not short stories, but episodic stories for papers and stuff. And I think maybe giving a reading like this was something that was just done at the time, not performing it as a play.
Yeah, I think it was just his positioning on the stage that threw me, to be honest. If he were smack in the middle, I would have been like, okay, that's what this is. But it looked like they were making room for something.
Yeah.
But I guess it was just an artistic choice. And everybody is wrapped Marley's face. But then he's like, it looked like, and then he points dramatically, like that. And it's the old lady who is apparently losing control of her shit. And
all
the
that
gas just comes
gas
flying
is
out. Saying,
no
am I
fart
right?
jokes.
And that is what Rose and Rose is like in costume also, but the doctor just changes his sweater, which I found real weird considering he's so like, where are you going in that outfit? But
Called
is
her
not at all
Barbarella.
worried himself, you know? What's that?
He called her Barbarella.
Oh, what is that a reference to?
It's
is
a
that
Jane
movie?
Fonda movie where she's like, I have never seen that either, but she's practically naked.
Oh my God. I didn't because when he said that, I meant to look that up after, and I totally forgot about it.
I think it's Jane Fonda. I'm going to look it up right now so people don't yell at me.
But I feel like I've seen the cover for it, and is she supposed to be like a cave woman or something?
Hold on, I'm looking it up right now. It is Jane Fonda. Barbarella, an astronaut from the 41st century, sets out to find and stop the evil scientist Durand, whose
Oh my God.
positronic ray threatens to bring evil back into the galaxy. I 100% want to watch this movie.
Oh
It
my
sounds
God.
great.
Well,
It came
he
out in
is very
1968.
firm about her changing clothes, but is not worried himself about just like wandering around in a leather blazer. Which, sir, everybody notices. They're all calling you out for it. What's your deal? I think he just wants to see her in a corset, is my personal opinion on the topic.
She looks good in it.
She does. So yeah, they wind up like, going in and getting caught up in this whole thing. And this is when Rose, who has seen too much, gets knocked out and kidnapped by the fucking Undertaker, who, like, I love, what's her name again?
Gwyneth?
Gwyneth. She's like, what are you doing? And he's like, she's seen too much. And she's just like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. I'm like, good God. Well, I have no idea what I would do in her shoes. Would I just turn around and leave and be like, no, I'm not participating in this? Would I like pretend to go along with it and then hail a cop, a constable? Like, this is just a whole bad situation. Thankfully, even though the doctor is not able to stop them, he knows where they're heading, so it does not last long. It's not like he spends half the episode looking for her.
Yeah.
Because they know exactly where they need to go. And he basically hijacks Dickens' carriage in order to do it. And Dickens is not disposed to help until he tells him how he's a very big cooling implement. Which, yeah, I wonder when the word fan became the thing. Because when he says I'm a huge fan, Dickens does not understand what he means, and then says fanatic, and I'm like, oh, right, that's where the word comes from. Because I sat there going, where does that even come from? And could not remember. And when he reminded me, I'm like, okay, so that feels like it could have started earlier. Because a fanatic, fanatic's been bounced around for a while. So fan feels like it could have started 100 years before this. It surprised me that this was something that wasn't already being used.
Yeah, I don't know where to look for that information, but
Somebody tell me.
I love how language evolves like that.
Mm-hmm.
I find it fascinating. So if anybody has a quick answer, please let us know.
Emphasis on quick. Thank you. So, and Dickens also is like really not buying this whole thing. He thinks all of this is like part of a show, that somebody was playing a huge prank because he was telling a ghost story. And this is during a period where spiritualism and seances are like a huge deal. So he is
yeah,
not.
because later when they're going to do a seance, he is like, no.
Yeah. He is rolling his eyes so hard at that table. And I just was cracking up because, like, you know, we know as viewers that in this instance, this is definitely what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. But if I were him in this situation for real, I would be doing the exact same thing. Like, just when she just calls out, spirits, and he just, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, yep, dude, for reals. So, yeah, they get to the house, and this shit has already started to pop off when they get there. Like, Rose is like waking up, but they've left her alone in the room with one of the corpses, which begins to also wake up. And then they start to attack her. Yeah, again. They start to attack her.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't this get brought up?
I don't know.
All right. I'll leave it alone. I just want to register my misgivings is the word I want here.
There is something. First of all, the person who wrote this screenplay is Mark Gatiss, who you know from Sherlock.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he plays Moriarty.
That's Mark Gatiss?
Isn't it the same guy who played the guy from from Bravos, from the Bank of Bravos in Game of Thrones?
Oh, no, that's his brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same person I'm thinking of, but Mark Gatiss, who is an actor on Sherlock, wrote this.
Right.
And he said that originally the script was much bleaker and more frightening, but he was advised by the showrunner to make it more of a romp. So I wonder if some of this stuff that sort of the threads just sort of go off on their own and never get addressed was from the original script.
Interesting. Okay. That might make sense. I wonder what was bleaker, like what he had been going to do.
I don't know.
That interests me greatly. All right. Well, in any case, as they get to the house and they like force their way in, because Gwyneth does not want to let them in because she was instructed to tell whoever is at the door that he is not there. They basically push past her ass and are just like, girl, listen, stop it. We know some shit's happening. We know our friend is in there. This is nonsense. And also, you're just going to need our help, like flat out, in a second. Which you will notice when you hear the screaming coming from the other room. And they push past her, and I really love how irritated the Undertaker is. Like, there is so much shit to be irritated about right now. The fact that she let people in your house is really the least of it, my friend. Just get over it. And they wind up saving Rose, of course, but this leads to like this weird conversation where they're all sitting around like having tea, and the maid Gwyneth comes and gives the doctor his tea just the way he likes it, even though she's supposedly keeping her power under wraps. Apparently, she can't control what she's saying as well. Like, her, you know what I mean? Like, her power is both reading minds and also like not being able to help but blurt out what she's hearing when she reads them.
She can read minds, but she's not so good at hiding that.
Yeah. And again, Dickens here is just like, this is just a bunch of bullshit. He calls it morbid fancy, which I really like. That's a good store name. Like, if you're going to have like a kind of spin-off to like...
To Hot Topic?
Hot Topic, yeah, you know, morbid fancy.
For all your goth wares.
And the doctor is so irritated by the fact that he won't admit what he saw. He tells him, if you're going to deny it, don't waste my time, just shut up. And I love it. Charles just looks so affronted. How dare you speak to me this way? But in this conversation, the doctor mentions this rift, which he senses, I guess, is happening here. I'm not really sure how he comes to this conclusion, except for the fact that it's this house specifically that's having all the trouble. But he associates whatever's going on here with it being geographically located in a specific place that has something going on, rather than it being a ghost and something happened here and the spirits attached itself to the house. He has a totally different interpretation than I think most of us would have if we were going to be trying to guess what was going on here.
He probably has some experience with cracks in space-time, which is what he says. Shut up. Is what he says the rift is, and maybe recognizing things like this that can sneak through.
Yeah. I mean, they mention the Time War, right, when they managed to finally speak to them. So it does seem like it is his territory.
And it's little things like this that I wonder if they're probably references to previous episodes in previous seasons from long ago. And if you're an avid Doctor Who watcher of all the old stuff, you recognize the term the rift. And it doesn't need to be explained. And I know we have a couple of listeners who are Doctor Who scholars, so they could let us know if that's what it is.
I like it. And yeah, his feeling here is, well, not in this scene, but he winds up saying that the rift is what has led to this girl Gwyneth having her psychic powers, right?
Yeah, because she was born on top of it.
Yeah. And so her powers are growing stronger as the rift gets wider. And
wider. We're ruining this show.
I'm good. I quit. Forget it. I don't blame you. I blame myself. But yeah, and not only are her powers getting stronger, but this is happening a lot more frequently too. The stiffs, as he puts it.
Stiff. Sorry, I'm done. I won't do it again.
Everybody direct your hate mail at Jaime, please. I don't want to hear it. You saw what happened here. But yeah, and I love when everybody looks at him when he says that, then he corrects it to, dearly departed. Which I love that, a little amendment of, oh, right, I'm not supposed to talk about these once living people this way. But
it doesn't stop him later.
It doesn't. He just keeps up with that, and I guess everybody's just sort of resigned themselves to the fact that he's a bit of a creep, and that's just how he's going to be. And the conversation, he corners Dickens later and tells him, I'm sorry that I told you to shut up, but also think about it. These are gas creatures that go into bodies that are producing gas because they are decaying, which I was like, all right, sure. And they travel around in the gas lines, which is why the lamps keep flaring and whatnot. The whole thing, it's just such a weird concept. And I like it in principle. I don't know how I feel about the execution of it. But I thought that he had sort of won Charles over in this scene, but that has not quite happened yet. Because the scene ends with Charles being like, so wait, if you're telling me that this shit is real, that means that I dedicated myself to bullshit my whole life that does not matter. To which I'm like, how is that the conclusion that you're coming to? Do social issues just suddenly not matter anymore because there are gas creatures?
Yeah.
Dude.
Oh my God, there's something I don't know about. Well, I guess I'm wrong about everything.
Yeah. Guys, these gas creatures aren't going to distribute bread to the poor. It's not like this is going to fix anything. It's just you just found out about an aspect of existence that you didn't know about. It's fine. Relax. But yeah, he really like takes it hard. And I'm fine with the idea of somebody like taking it hard. Like this is don't you start with me. But this is a real situation where people have a moment of, wow, everything I think I know is wrong. And I really like that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But the conclusion that he comes to feels so crazy to me. And not really the logical next step mentally to take. But maybe, sometimes people do that. Sometimes people take mental steps that I'm just like, how is that the part that you're worried about?
Yeah, how do you learn something new that you didn't know before and go, no.
Right? Well, I can't believe that because then that means my life is a lie. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's all about you, isn't it, Dickens? So he doesn't wind up really getting convinced of what's going on here until later at the seance. And then we have the conversation between Gwyneth and Rose. Mm-hmm. Rose is very inappropriate. She just says shit without thinking about when she is or who she's talking to. And in some ways I admire that, and in some ways I'm like, what are you doing? But apparently this lady just takes it as like, oh, you're a bit of a weirdo, huh? Instead of just, immediately thinking, wow, what a horrible skank that I should never associate with again.
What does Gwyneth say to her when after Rose is like asking her about boys?
Mm-hmm. She says, you're obviously a lady with breeding, and yet you talk like a wild thing.
Right.
Which I want to know how she's obviously a lady with breeding.
Probably just the clothes.
I guess so, yeah. Which, to be fair, it's a great outfit. But it doesn't, like, I had, as we said, we had hoped that something could come of this, like, that would lead to an improvement in Gwyneth's life. And it does not happen, because Gwyneth dead. Mm-hmm. Bless her heart. But it is a nice little meeting of the, this is the second, like, I'm going off to speak to the help moment that Rose has had in 3 episodes. But I don't mind it. I like it.
Well, and Rose isn't a woman of breeding. She is of the working class. So I think she relates to, no matter what time she's in, she relates to those people immediately.
That's true. And she can see that this girl's being, like, totally taken advantage of by this old shitbag. Mm-hmm. 8 pounds a year. I know. I would have been fine with 6. Oh, my God, sweetie. Sweetie.
And when Gwyneth talks about how she went to school once a week, and Rose is like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking later when they're arguing about what to do. And she's like, I can see in your head that you think I'm stupid.
Yeah.
And I was like, ouch, ooh, that sucks. Like, and instead of saying that's not true, she says that's not fair, which is the right response. Don't deny that, but also you're really simplifying my thoughts right now.
Yeah.
Like, you are just in a position where you don't know what we know. So it's not even stupid, it's just ignorant. There's no possible way for you to know what we know.
Yeah, and it's ignorant not in a, like, willfully ignorant way. Mm-hmm, it's that she didn't have the opportunities to learn much. Mm-hmm. She went to school on Sunday, which means she went to Sunday school.
Yep.
And they did sums, which was really impressive to her. She got to learn math. Ugh. Like, girls in her position didn't get to learn things like reading and math back then. So it's not that Rose thinks that she's stupid. She just, I think, feels sorry because she didn't have and doesn't have opportunities.
Yeah, agreed. So, all right, let's talk about the seance when everything starts to go down. And by down, I mean badly. These gas creatures come, like, through Gwyneth at the table and speak. They have, like, a distinct shape of people, like, wearing cloaks. And they say that, pity us, pity the Gelth, there is so little time. Which I'm curious what that means. Like, how long could they have survived here before breaking through? How much time would they have had if Gwyneth had not been available to be a conduit?
I don't know. In situations like that, I don't trust what they're saying.
That there's a time limit at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're playing up the pity us. Oh my God, we lost our whatever. We need bodies so that we can survive. Mm-hmm. We're the last of our kind. And the doctor obviously sympathizes with the last of a kind.
Yep. Yeah, I'm wondering if they like know something about him that they were able to so perfectly pinpoint a weak spot that he would like kind of lose his head and trust something that he has no knowledge of just because it really, like, you know, just...
If they know about the Time War, then possibly.
Yeah. But and the effect of them standing behind her is, I think, pretty cool looking. You know, it's like a weird combo of gas and like almost like there's like a painted sort of thing happening. Mm-hmm. Watercolor. But yeah, so they say, you know, we used to have a physical form like you. We are trapped in this gaseous state. And we want to stand tall. We want to feel the sunlight, to live again. And we need a physical form. And your dead are abandoned. They go to waste. Give them to us. And Rose says, but we can't. And immediately the doctor says, why not? And she's trying to like verbalize exactly why not. And he's like, it could save their lives. And I'm like, yeah, also it could sincerely traumatize the people who are like, who loved the person who died, to see them walking the fuck around again.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Rose means, but doesn't verbalize to him.
Yeah. It's like she's so baffled by the fact that she has to explain this at all that she can't form the words.
And he says, are you an organ donor? And she says that's different. And he says it's a different kind of morality. But it's not.
No, it's not. Like, I get what he's trying to say, and I agree in principle that there are lines that we draw that at times can feel really arbitrary. But that's saving people who are still alive, who are also human beings.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the same thing as giving a body that used to belong to somebody and still, in a way, it does belong to people because it was, you know, like, and just letting them take it. And also there's no mention of the logistics of whether it keeps rotting because they're able to be there because of the gas.
He calls it recycling.
Right?
Which is the most callous thing I think he has said up to this point.
That's interesting that you think that, because that was the one part that I was like, no, I mean, yeah.
No, I get what he's saying, but also you're talking about recycling loved ones. That's not, it's not the same as recycling. They're just bodies, but they were people we loved. It's not, you just can't throw another creature inside of them. If I wouldn't want my parents walking around, you know? Not my parents.
It doesn't seem like they're going to people's families and being like, well, would you be willing to donate your, like, the body of... So they're just going to suddenly see Grandma wandering around the village green one day.
Yeah, and are they going to take the bodies of people who've been dead a while and are rotted? Because then you've just got corpses walking around. And no, that's unsanitary, and this era was already unsanitary enough.
Yeah, we don't need more of that.
Yeah.
We really don't. So yeah, we are in agreement on this one. And he's just so pushy about it and so condescending to Rose and acting like she's the one that's being so hysterical and so close-minded. And, once we find out what's really going on, he was the closed-minded one, because it never even seemed to enter his mind that they were just lying.
Yeah.
They were just fucking lying to you about what they are, about what they were capable of, about what they wanted. All of it. And how arrogant do you have to be to think that you really know everything that's going on? Like, dude.
Well, it's a parallel with him and Dickens in that sense. The Doctor does think he knows everything. And
That's
he
true.
does know a lot. But he still has a lot to learn. About humans, especially.
Not much. Well, for a second I thought you were still talking about Dickens, and I was like, he doesn't have much time to learn it in, apparently. But
No, the Doctor.
The Doctor. And also the fact that he's so willing to let this girl shoulder this burden also, which Rose is rightfully very irritated by.
Yeah.
Like, this girl is going to have to be the one to let this through, and you know that. She's going to have to be a bridge, and that's a fucking serious thing. Like, you don't know how that's going to affect her. And he's totally just like, well, what are you going to do? She's got the skill and nobody else does, so it's not really like even a choice is sort of the implication I feel like he's making here, that she has no choice. And that's fucked up.
And poor Gwyneth hasn't had a lot of choices in her life either.
Yep.
Poor Gwyneth. She wants to help her angels, she says.
I can understand when you've been dealing with this your whole life and trying to hide it and thinking that there's something wrong with you, to feel like you've suddenly found out the reason why and that there's a purpose to it has to be super comforting. And it's just such a bummer that it's all not real and that she knows it's not real. It's not even like she dies thinking that she did the right thing.
Yeah.
She's alive enough to know that this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
So Rose goes to the Doctor and says, look, I know this doesn't work because there aren't corpses walking around in the future.
Yeah.
And the Doctor tells her that time is constantly in flux and it's not a linear line. It can be any shape, which means nothing is safe, which means that Rose is not safe.
Right. Yeah, later she's like, I haven't even been born yet, so I can't die, can I? And he's like, so, funny story, yes you can, sorry.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, fucking really?
Yeah.
But, alright, so the gate. Promise you won't hurt her, says Rose, and the thing just says, hurry, please, so little time, and does not answer Rose. And that should have been like the first warning, but apparently we all just assume that it's so caught up in its desperation that it doesn't hear.
And it doesn't have a scary voice.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a scary voice, so why would it be lying?
And
if it had a, devil voice, then you'd be like,
Which apparently is all we need later to realize that it's like that things are not what they is. It turns red and becomes devilish.
Yep.
She has given herself to the Gelth. Rather a lot of them, huh? The bridge is open. We descend. Whoopsies.
Yep. And they don't just want corpses. They will kill everybody and take over their bodies.
Yep. You said that there were a few of you. A few billion. Whoops.
Way to go,
And I
Doctor.
love at this point the Undertaker comes up to her and says, stop this, child. Like, she's the one in control at this point. Dude, have you not figured this out yet? And he gets grabbed by one of the corpses who holds him in place so that they can jump in and take over his body.
Well, they snap his neck.
Right, yeah. Which, good. Fuck that guy. I have joined the legions of the Gelth. Come, march with us. He looks amazing. Like him and the guy in the nightshirt. it's a pretty great, like, weirdo moment because it sort of mirrors, like, the Scrooge thing being in his nightshirt.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of that look here.
Mm-hmm.
But all of these corpses start walking through, and they have to, like, lock them down in the morgue to keep them from getting out, because I guess what we're going... Because when I saw them flying around, my assumption was that they could leave and, like, go outside. But apparently what it is they can fly to, like, the nearest body and hold hundreds inside and then release once they're out. But then when what's his face is sitting next to the standing next to the door, they come out through the door and, like, chase him. So I guess I don't know how this works.
I was thinking about that too when I was rewatching it today, because there's all this stuff about how they need the gas.
Right.
And I feel like Dickens turns up the gas and turns off the flame.
Right.
To draw them back. But I don't understand. I guess they can't live in the regular air. So then why don't you shut off the gas? And then they can't exist.
They flew. Well, when it's chasing him, it flies through the air fine.
But then it stops. It says it can't.
Passes the gas, it gets sucked in.
Oh.
Like it didn't mean to be.
Okay.
Except that gas was lit, and it got sucked in.
Yeah.
So turning it off still doesn't make sense.
And he didn't turn it off. He just turned off the flame, but he left the gas going. Right. And then he runs back in the house and he turns off the flame so the gas isn't burning. It's just going into the air so that they all are, I guess, attracted to all of that gas that's not burning off.
I guess.
But then he blows it up. I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm like going back to look at this moment when it's chasing him, because it pauses in midair, and he turns and looks at it, failing atmosphere hostile, and then gets sort of sucked into so it retreats into the gas. So I thought that it got sucked in, like the flame did something to it, but it retreats on purpose into the gas because that's preferable to the actual atmosphere.
Right, because they're gaseous.
Right. So then when they have the gas saturating the air becomes more conducive than the bodies.
Right.
And so they get sucked out of the bodies.
Right. He says, like, poison from a wound.
Right. I guess. All right. Sure. And then they try and, like, help out Gwyneth and get her out of there. But she can't move. Like, and as we find out later, he believes that she has been dead for several minutes.
Since they turned her into the bridge. She
stepped under the archway.
Yeah.
Which is fucked up. And she says that she's going to help, and she pulls out a box of matches. And the gas is still on, so everybody's sort of choking here. And Rose doesn't want to leave. And he tells Rose, I won't leave her while she's in danger. And then, like, 20 seconds after that, leaves her to die. Which...
Well, but she was already dead.
I know, but it just is... when you don't... Because he doesn't say that until after, like... Once he's talking to Rose, then you find out that, he realizes because he touches her and there's no pulse. But in the moment, you don't know what's going... So he had just said that, and then he, like, bails. And I was like, well, what the fuck, dude? But yeah, so she's still standing there, apparently, like, somewhat in control of herself, despite being dead already. And he just barely gets out of the house as she lights the match. And the place goes up like a candle. And it's really a bummer. She saved the world, as Rose says, and nobody is ever going to know about it. And hopefully all of those things did die, because they don't have any evidence to support that that's what happens.
Yeah.
They don't know that blowing the place up is going to be enough to keep this from, to keep them from getting out and spreading. But it's a decent enough theory to go with. If gas burns off and they depend on it, then the atmosphere is hostile. So, okay. Yeah. So that's kind of sad. And this leads to them walking back with Dickens to the TARDIS, and he is very inspired and can't wait to go home and write about all of these different things, and thinks that maybe he'll turn the murderer in one of his stories from someone's uncle into some like otherworldly being.
A
Which is
blue
really
elemental.
something. A blue elemental. And he apparently is kind of into Rose because he's sad that she's getting into the TARDIS also.
Which is weird because then he says he's going to go back home and spend time with his family. But
yeah.
men,
Fucking
what can I
horn
say?
dog. Hate him.
He takes the time to ask the doctor if his work carries on, if his work is remembered.
I like that.
Yeah. And the doctor
would
tells
wanna
him
know.
it is forever.
Yeah. It was kind of a touching moment when he says, how long forever? Like, you can't get a better answer to that question than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole moment I just found rather touching.
And then the doctor says something about we'll give him one last surprise and lets him see the TARDIS disappear.
Yeah. And he, like, cackles.
Yeah.
He really, like, that's the only word I can think to describe it, is he cackles.
And he walks through the street wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and God bless us, everyone. So I guess that's
What a nerd.
how... I don't know if A Christmas Carol was finished at this point or if he changed it based on his experiences, if that's what we're supposed to get from this. That he had Scrooge learn that lesson. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't take it that way, but could be. But yeah, I don't know. Again, neither of us know enough about Dickens, is what it comes down to. So who knows? And so that's the end of the episode. It's pretty fun. I like this one.
Good.
And it was such a weird, like, because, when it starts off, I thought that it was going to be, like, a really perfect Halloween-y episode. But then it turns out to really be a Christmassy episode, in a way, because of the setting.
Yeah.
And,
Well, it's funny
yeah.
that they would do anything sort of taking place at Christmas since they always have a Christmas episode, as a lot of British shows do.
Oh, that's true, huh?
But it is, it obviously has Christmas parallels.
They don't have Halloween episodes, huh? British don't care about Halloween.
They don't care about Halloween the way that we do.
Yeah. Such a shame. You don't know what you're missing, Brits.
Mark Gatiss is Mycroft.
That's his name. I was like, it's his brother, and I couldn't remember his name, because both Sherlock and Mycroft are bananas names.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Is there anything you wanted to add?
There was a thing that Mark Gatiss said on the commentary that there originally was going to be a scene in which the Doctor was mistaken for Sneed's new cleaner, and that someone would have stated, "I thought you'd be a woman," to which the Doctor would reply, "No, not yet," hinting that Time Lords can change gender.
Nice.
But it was cut out.
How about that? So weird, right?
Imagine. And then there's also Dickens cries out, "What the Shakespeare?" which is a play on the common exclamation, "What the Dickens?"
Oh my God.
But What the Dickens actually doesn't have anything to do with Charles Dickens. It has to do with the devil. It's a euphemism for the devil.
No shit.
That's what I learned.
So his name is Charles Devil.
Yeah.
All right.
Apparently, in a 2006 Big Finish production, audio drama, The Kingmaker, whatever that is, William Shakespeare cries out, "What the Geoffrey Chaucer?" Which I find
Everybody
delightful.
calm the fuck down. Jesus Christ. Getting out of hand. A little too cute.
So yeah, that's all I've got. I'm glad you like this episode. It's not one of my favorites, but it actually gets a little more enjoyable on rewatch, which is surprising.
Yeah, it's like surprising to me that I enjoyed it despite like all of these things that I'm poking holes in at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't mind that. It was fine. So, I'm also just kind of a sucker for that period as well.
Yeah. Good close.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, everybody, you know where to find us. Facebook.com/UnspoiledPod, Twitter at UnspoiledShow, Instagram at UnspoiledPodcast. You can support the show by shopping on Amazon at unspoiledpodcast.com/Amazon. You can become a patron and get access to all kinds of bonus, like so much. There's so much.
So much.
Right. I'm going to be starting Unspooled, which are the Halloween, like true story readings. Next week, hopefully I'll be able to release the first one. And I'm doing Black Mirror for $5 and up patrons with Miles. And, there's going to be the Harry Potter reread will be coming back once we're done with Westworld in a few weeks. There's a lot for patrons. And also there's like cocktail hours for $3 and up patrons. There's Unsober episodes for $20 and up patrons. There's so much. So, yeah, check all of that out. Patreon.com/unspoiled.
There's also access to all the completed shows that had been patrons only before.
Yes. So coverage of like the first season of Luke Cage, the two seasons of Jessica Jones. I did solo episodes of Firefly, and the first 2 seasons of Black Mirror with Miles. Trying to think what else. There's a lot.
There's so much. I have a show on the Unspoiled Network. It's called The Constant. It's about Lost. We are finishing up season 5 this week. We'll be recording about the finale and then getting into season 6, which is the last season. Chris is starting to panic because it's almost over.
Yeah, it's so weird when you start to get to that point in a show and you're like, okay, so now like I'm having to approach all of this as if it's the wrapping up. And sometimes you're just like, there's no way. How can they do it? How can they wrap? I was feeling that way with Orphan Black, and they actually wound up handling it very well. I was so worried.
Yeah.
But then there's, shows like Penny Dreadful.
Yeah,
where
shit the bed.
The finale episode is just me yelling for 45 fucking minutes. And you guys think you laugh like I'm kidding.
No,
Y'all,
I know.
If you listen to that episode, you know. I just banged on the table and yelled.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's everything. Thank you, Miss Jaime, for joining me again. And I'm excited to have finally gotten episodes that I haven't already seen.
Me too. Can't wait for the next one.
And guys, don't forget to leave a review if you enjoy the show, because we haven't gotten any reviews on iTunes yet. So be the first one. Break our podcast cherry.
Oh, he went back.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.